We're live. Okay. Um, so it's been a while since we got together and we did this crazy thing called data security over coffee. As you can tell by the label on the screen, my name is Joe, and I'm joined by my business partner, Angie. So it's been a year since we had an initial conversation, I think, about SOC, whatever. And like most of you know, Angie likes to spend money and I don't. So, but before we get into something really serious, why, Angie, do we now have a new tagline under our company name as evidenced by your swag that you're wearing?
I'd like to say there was some brilliance behind it, but it all comes down to search engine optimization. And for 22 years, we've talked about data security. And the buzzword is cybersecurity. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing we've been doing for 22 years. But, you know, in today's world, if you want to be found on search engines, social media, it's the buzz. So we've changed our tagline to keep up with those times, even though for over 2 decades we've been working in cybersecurity.
Right. And I think, and jokingly, we also, not jokingly, but seriously, we changed the mascot. Well, we didn't change the mascot. We changed the look of the honey badger, since everybody thought that we were skunks, and now we truly have this pretty cool looking honey badger, as well as evidenced by my, what the hell is it? My super duper shoulder. And if Angie stood up and spun around, she would see that it's on the back of her super cool looking jacket. Not a 3/4 zip, by the way.
I wanted people to know I'm cool as I'm walking away.
You are. There's no doubt that you are cool. And the other thing I think is important is, obviously, we wrapped up 2022, had a good year, did some pretty cool things. But I think the most important thing is, why did we do the whole SOC thing? And like you and I were talking about, I don't want to get into defining SOC. You can talk about the fact that it's not a certification, but I think for people that are our customers today and our partners, why does this whole thing matter to them? Why are people going to care about the journey that we decided to take?
Well, when I brought this up to you over a year ago, and it's probably been even longer, where I've been saying, this is a thing. This is real. It's going to be continuing to be requested more and more by our clients. You kind of scoffed and said, we have everything we need in our NAID certification, our NAID AAA certification, and our very, very high limits of professional liability coverage and things like that. And my point has always been that it's not good enough for us just to say what we do. And it's especially important in our role as security risk analysis professionals, which is one of the primary jobs that we do for our client, is to come in and assess risk and, in effect, perform an audit. Although our risk analysis work is very collaborative, we have to be able to demonstrate and prove that we do what it is we're telling you to do. We have to understand your pain. And so it's super.
But why do you think that that's important? I mean, I think it's a great thing to say, and it looks really well on a marketing slick, and it makes people feel really good in a meeting or a Zoom or whatever. But why? Like, why does that matter? Because it costs us a lot of money to do this, by the way. This was not cheap.
It cost us a lot of money. And your big job here is not only to make the money, but it's also to make sure that we spend wisely. And I do like to spend money in this business on things that bring us value, and being able to demonstrate unequivocally that we practice what we preach, that when we say we have over 150 security controls in place, policies, procedures, technical controls, that there's an outside independent authority in the form of CPAs who came in and tested and looked at everything that we did. And so I think that it's also really important because when I talk about practicing what we preach, you know, we hear it from our clients quite often when they work with bigger firms that, you know, it seemed like our risk analysis last year, the big company just drove up with the school bus and dropped off a bunch of kids that just graduated college, and they came in and told us all this stuff we're supposed to do, and they don't have any understanding of the operational impact that's going to have, and they think you just flip a switch and turn on multi-factor authentication, and you know, they don't understand, especially in healthcare, the impact of what those controls can do, the risk to human life and patient care. And so it's super important that we understand firsthand that we practice these same controls, and we understand that when we recommend to you that you implement things, that we know it has the potential to be painful.
Right.
But we also know, and we're experts in, and our team has extensive expertise in also designing compensating controls that can help take some of that burden, some of that pain out of protecting what you need to protect. Because it isn't always as simple as flipping switches and buying a widget. It's oftentimes a very intentional, designed people, process, and technology team approach to figuring out how to implement a control that, to those of us who don't work in the trenches, looks like it should just be something simple, you know?
So in layman's terms, because I'm not the smartest person in the room, believe it or not.
Yeah.
When I go to one of our customers, I don't care who it is, whether it's healthcare, financial services, education, state government, and we now tell them that we've gone through this process, we've gone through this journey, and we've acquired this thing. What's the number one value add for them that they get from us? Like, why is that going? Why would somebody sit back and, wow, that's really cool. Like, I'm so glad you did that. What are they going to get?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I look at when I'm the customer. If someone has a SOC 2 type 1 or type 2, that's my number one differentiator between one vendor and another.
But why?
Because it's been independently tested.
So is that the key differentiation? Is it that it was independently evaluated and assessed? Okay.
Yes. And it's very different than someone just saying, well, we have big professional liability insurance, or yeah, we do all those things. Trust us. This is trust but verify. It's exactly what we tell our own clients to do when they're managing their own vendors. So when I'm assessing vendors for us to use here at Reclamere, or I'm assessing partners that we're going to work with, when I see that organization has gone to the time, the expense, and especially with a SOC type 2, where an organization can demonstrate over a period of time that not only do they have these security controls in place, but they are effective, as evidenced by all of the working papers and all of the evidence that's been presented to the auditor, that these controls are in fact actually effective.
So back in the day, 2001-ish, 2002-ish, we had a large university in Western Pennsylvania pressure us to get environmental liability insurance. And at the time, we were like, nah, we don't really need it. We're not dismantling anything. We've never been a demanufacturer, but we went out and we got it. And we saw that that was the beginning of, okay, and at least in the ITAM space, there was this differentiation. You went on this, I would call another journey in 2002, 2003 around NAID and what does NAID mean to Reclamere. And so we started to get down that path.
Well, I would call that wasn't a journey, that was a crusade.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I
think
flat out saw the
Yeah.
alignment of destroying paper information and destroying digital information. Like that
And
was a
so-
crusade.
And so then we got this whole thing where, we've had BAN got involved and R2 comes around and so on and so forth. So if you take a look at, if we look at the ITAM business first, right? So do you think, based on trends and forecasting and liability, whatever, that this attestation, and you're going to talk about the difference between certification and attestation, I know that, but this
Sure.
attestation for SOC is going to become another requirement to play the game as an IT asset management company?
I think it's possible. It definitely is a major differentiator. The IT asset management industry was born out of scrap recycling.
Right.
So when you and I came along, and we came from an IT background and a security background, particularly because we had worked with a lot of healthcare organizations in our prior life, we knew it wasn't about the hardware. We knew it wasn't about the environment. We knew it was about the data. And so, unfortunately, that industry still to this day is largely dominated by organizations that came out of the scrap world or come out of the refurbished hardware world. So every business puts its energy, its time, its focus into where it makes the most money. And if what you do to make money is you sell old hardware, that is where priorities, emphasis, team focus, pricing, that is where it will be.
Right.
That is why we will never be the cheapest IT asset management company on the planet.
I agree with you.
I think it's great that IT equipment has residual value. And I think it's wonderful that keeping things out of a landfill and extending the life helps the environment. But at the end of the day, what is most important to me is that our clients' data comes here to die
So
forever and always.
So let's flip over to the other side of the business, which is a managed security service provider. So we are different than what you would consider to be the, version 2.0 of an MSP, a managed service provider, right?
Sure.
So if you take a look at the space that we currently serve today,
Right.
as it pertains to an outsourced chief information security officer, an outsourced assessor, an outsourced arm of somebody's cybersecurity journey, how do you think SOC is going to impact that space as far as the participants go? Like
that's massive. That's massive. When I look at things like the NAID AAA certification for ITAM, and I look at SOC 2, types 1 and 2, I still will say that NAID AAA certification is a better program for one reason. And that is because at any minute of any day, an auditor can walk into this building and ask to see anything for cause because a competitor reported us, for no reason, we just got randomly picked out of a hat. A disgruntled employee files a complaint saying, hey, I used to work there and they don't do stuff right. There are all kinds of reasons companies can get unannounced audits.
Why is that so important though? Like, why is that such a big deal to our customers and our prospects? Why should they sit back and say, when they hear that our NAID AAA certification has a component called an unannounced audit that they should be like, wow, that's really cool. And you know what? That's valuable to us. And sure, you may not be the cheapest guy in the room, the cheapest player, but that matters, and we're willing to make that investment. Why do they care about an unannounced audit?
Puts the teeth in it. It's why bad people still pay their taxes. They may try to get around it, but that fear, hopefully, of an audit keeps the bad people honest. So that's
Okay.
a massive component. And if I were queen of, if I were a CPA and I were in leadership at the service organization, folks that handle SOC and manage that whole thing, two things that they could add that could really take SOC types 1 and 2 literally over the moon to be the ultimate validation of security controls for an organization would be unannounced audits and some type of policing mechanism. Because that's the other aspect of NAID AAA certification where they really got it right. And because you sat on the Complaint Resolution Council, we police our own in the National Association for Information Destruction, and the umbrella organization of I-Sigma. We police our own, and there are real teeth. There are certifications that get withdrawn. Yeah. There are fines. And so that peer policing makes us more of an industry watchdog than it does a trade association. And so without that unannounced audit component and without that policing component of holding organizations accountable, I think that there always is the risk that somebody looks good on paper, or they looked good for one day that the auditor showed up. Now, the beautiful thing about SOC is that we spent about 6 months taking everything that we had and basically putting it on steroids, beefing up everything that we've been doing for a very long time, and enhancing all of that so that it would pass muster with the CPAs who audit us. So I'm really looking forward to 2023 because 2022 was all about SOC 2 Type 1. That's to prove you have the controls in place. And that's for us to attest to the CPAs and for the CPAs to then come back with their own letter saying, yes, everything you've attested is improved. Is what we're working on for 2020. And that is not that snapshot in time.
Like
it is. How did we freeze?
I'm sorry. We had a little bit of internet buffering going on.
Did
froze.
You downgrade our internet for
it's
cheaper
okay.
internet?
It's not my fault. I don't own the internet. Well, I had to pay for the SOC thing somehow. Somehow the money had to be paid.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
so 2023
what happens
is
now?
all about us.
So now what happens?
Taking that next level. So now what happens is we need a good 6 months of actually having these controls in place so that we can then show evidence that, yes, we do in fact follow our patch management program, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but every single week, every single month, and that there is a process that we go through. It just proves over the course of time that you have a whole body of evidence showing that you're continuously doing what it is you say you do, and you're continuously improving upon it.
So I get the whole SOC Type 1, Type 2, and what it means to customers and prospects, okay? But what does it mean to what I would consider to be the partner community? So we have MSPs out there that we work with as their partner. They've decided that they don't want to invest in the personnel, the tools, develop the subject matter expertise as it pertains to cybersecurity. And so they rely on Reclamere to do that work on their behalf for their customers, right? Yeah. So what does this whole thing now and this investment mean to our partner community? Why are they going to be like, oh my gosh, this is great? Like, why do they care?
Well, I love our MSP partners because the ones that partner with us are ones that truly, they get it. Like they see we're not a competitor. We don't want to sell hardware. We don't want to sell solutions for networking folks or moving them to the cloud. It is not what we do. It's not what I ever want to do. It's just not what we do. And so they see that we can be a true advocate for them with their client. So most of the time when we give a client or a partner our final report, there's very little in that report that's a surprise to them. Most
Right.
of the time they've been telling their client, you need to do this. And the smart MSPs today, that when they tell their client to do something and the client refuses, the smart MSPs are turning around and having those clients sign a waiver of liability, because everybody forgets what was rejected when there's a data breach. And the MSP can very easily get blamed. You know, why did we have a data breach? You're supposed to be protecting me. Well, Mr. Customer, I've been offering you all kinds of protection, and you wanted the bare bones, just keep the lights on, keep the computers working and the printers functioning, and you've rejected it every time. And by the way, here's the waiver of liability you signed when you rejected two-factor authentication. Here's the waiver of liability that you signed when you rejected our recommended patch management schedule and structure. So that's super important. And so the best thing I think that we bring is we bring just the same way that the CPAs brought the independent validation that what we say we're doing, we do. We bring independent validation to say to the client, yes, what your MSP or your internal IT staff is telling you is correct. You need these things, and here's why. And I think the biggest thing also is that we speak business. So not only can we tell them you need multi-factor authentication, we can talk to them about the business reasons why, and we can talk to them about what that means to their cyber liability carrier. That's super important. And MSPs do an incredible job of engineering and designing and managing infrastructure and systems. They don't always speak the language of business. And so again, that's kind of that world that we live in, is translating all of the technical to all of the business and operational and strategic objectives of an organization. And what we find is that those MSPs that partner with us actually are able to get their client to finally get on board with more solutions that they've been hoping and recommending that the client would do for quite a while. That's really gratifying to me. Like, I love that. I mean, the two biggest compliments we get are when a client renews a contract, which the number of our clients that renew year over year continues every single year to just blow me away. I'm humbled every year when I see the number of clients that just keep renewing with us because they see value. The MSPs that say, hey, you finally got my client to do some stuff that I've really been wanting them to do for a while, that's just as gratifying to me. Didn't put more money in my pocket, but it definitely put more money in the MSP's pocket, reduced their liability, and made their client more secure and safer. That's super gratifying to me.
So SOC 2 Type 2 is next.
Yep. It's going to cost more money.
I know. That's why your internet's going to get throttled back. What does that look like for Reclamere, and not in terms of the cost, but how does it differ from what we've already done?
Well, it's the closest equivalent we can get to an unannounced audit with SOC.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Okay.
It means that our staff has to be on their toes every day, because the next time we're assessed by our CPA for our SOC 2 attestation, we're not going to get that unless all the things we said we're doing are being done consistently, regularly, and that they are actually effective.
Okay.
So there's a
Okay.
big incentive for our team, not because we tell them to, or not because there's a big incentive for them to keep us compliant day after day, week after week, month after month.
So if you take a look at, so today is the 4th of January.
Mm-hmm.
So either in the first half of the year or for all of 23, what would you say are your predictions for just the overall space of information security? And it could have to do with the vendor community. The new term is ecosystem. That seems to be what's getting thrown around a lot. It could have to do with, new vendors in the market, consolidation, threats. What's the overall landscape look like for our customers? But what are the things that you would predict 2023 that people should be like, wow, that's kind of interesting?
Yeah, I have some hopes and dreams, and then I also have some dreads. I would really love to see the mergers and acquisition landscape slow down. I'm tired, and I got to believe that many clients are tired as well. We're tired of a different person every time we reach out to a vendor. We're tired of inexperienced people coming into our accounts and having to start from ground zero, especially if that vendor does something that is client facing. We're tired. And so it's happening all over the place. It's just a function of, boomers selling businesses and venture capital. And so I'm actually hoping that slows down. I really would like to see, I miss the good old days of where people grew businesses to grow a business. And their mission was not cash out at whatever. Their mission was to provide good services or build a good product. And that was their mission. Like, that is my mission in life. That's what I want to do. I want to see more of that. Our average employee tenure here is 8.5 years. Clients pick up the phone and call us and they talk to the same people. I want that in my vendors. So that's kind of, that's part of the dread, that I think the churn will continue, but my hope is that it will slow down. And I dream of a day where we don't have that kind of churn. Now, as far as what I think is going to be impacting our clients, our MSP partners, and everyone in general, is there is a big rude awakening for many people. Some have already had it, but many will be having it in 2023, that they are either not going to be able to get cyber liability insurance coverage, or if they have it, they will not be renewed. And so we're seeing that more and more. In fact, we're seeing where applications are just rejected completely out of hand as soon as the checkbox is filled that someone doesn't have MFA on every single thing. So that whole issue around cyber liability coverage will be massive. And so more and more organizations are going to require that their vendors have cyber liability coverage, but more and more companies are going to have a very hard time getting that coverage if they don't have really good, robust security in place.
So would you agree that people have done a better job in the last 24 months around vulnerability management?
I know our clients have.
Would you agree that in the same time frame, people have done a better job with security awareness training?
I think many of our clients have, but
And
I don't believe that cyber awareness training is anywhere near as prevalent as it needs to be.
And would you agree that from a horizon perspective, that really the next playing field is supply chain risk? And if so, what does that mean?
Vendor management is checkers. Supply chain risk is chess. You have to be downboard thinking every single one of those of your vendors, because you may have a critical vendor that has their own critical vendor that has a data breach. And because of the way that your cyber liability coverage is written, or the fact that you don't have business interruption insurance, or your business interruption insurance does not cover downboard vendors, 2 and 3 vendors removed from you, and therefore you get no coverage when you're not able to function.
Right.
That's where the chess and the calculus comes in when you're talking about vendor risk management. And the smaller your vendors are, the more you need supply chain risk management. We have some clients where, when we're doing their supply chain risk management for them, they have vendors like Microsoft and AWS. And I'm not saying it's not important to pay attention to those folks, but the vendors I worry about are the mom and pop medical records transcription, or some of the mid-tier and small business vendors that are in that supply chain.
Right.
Because number one, we don't really have the ability to affect much change if we see something in a security scorecard that Amazon is deficient in. But if we see, XYZ imaging company has a poor security score, we can go to that vendor as one of their bigger clients and say, these are the things you need to improve, or we will no longer be doing business with you. We have
Okay.
leverage. And so I think there's this idea that supply chain risk management is just for big companies. The smaller you are, the more important supply chain risk management becomes.
Okay. So you often accuse me of being too serious. So I thought that, I would give you an opportunity to perhaps lighten the atmosphere a little bit, if you'd like.
Yeah, but
talk about anything you want.
You don't start the recording soon enough. Like all the fun stuff, all the behind the scenes, like fun stuff, that all happens before.
So when you're swearing, you think that's really going to be a good idea because you're not able to get on StreamYard, or you can't get your camera to work, or you're not able to get your microphone to work. Those things you would like to have out in the wild, as they say.
Well, okay. Yes, I do have a little swearing problem. However, I'm all about authenticity. We're not perfect. But we do have a heck of a lot of fun around here. I mean, we do laugh every day, even on those days that I want to stab your eyeballs out. We still have fun around here. Yeah. So.
Well, I'm going to lighten the load a little bit. I received and this goes out to my friend Colin Scott. I received a very unique Christmas present this year that is in line with the honey badger mascot theme. However, his name is Bedward. This was given to me by my illustrious business partner, Angie. Brian Carnes, who's also a team member at Reclamere, considers him to be the Hugh Hefner of honey badgers, as you can tell by his interesting little outfit. So to Angie, now to the Galactic Universe, I can say thank you.
Well, here's the great thing about, is his name Bedgar?
Bedward. His name is Bedward.
Bedward. And what number is he?
He is number 7. No, I'm sorry. It's number 672 with a limited edition of 750 pieces.
Yeah, so there are only 750 of those on the entire planet. But
750 freaks are buying this thing. Yes,
that was correct. That was the smallest one at the shop. There was one that was 3 feet tall, but I wasn't going to spend $1,000 on you. So now for every occasion, I can get Bedgar a new outfit. So
you can do that.
He may be
Just don't use the Reclamere. Don't use the Reclamere credit card. That's all.
He may be Hugh Hefner looking right now, but you never know. And I think in future data security over coffee, Bedgar could show up. I mean, he could show up as one of the village people. He could show up.
He could have a Hawaiian shirt. You could get him an Hawaiian shirt.
He could. He could show up.
We could get him his own little. We could get him his own little Reclamere T-shirt. We could do that too.
You know what? Also, our data security over coffee fans could start sending in little hats and outfits for him. And, we could give them shout outs anytime we would, use their little outfits or whatever, accoutrement for Bedgar.
That's also true.
Yeah.
So 2022 is a great year.
Yes.
A big shout out, a thanks to all the people that work at Reclamere and allow Angie and I to do crazy stuff like this. And also a big thanks to their families, because we know that there are times when either people are out on the road, they're with customers, they're working overtime, but they're not with their families, and their families are sharing them with us, and we're appreciative of that as well. I guess what I would say from a prediction perspective is that the area of InfoSec and the threats that are associated with it are not going to go away. In fact, I think they're only going to escalate. I think it was a couple of months ago, we saw in either North or South Carolina where a power station was shot with rifles. That has nothing to do with cybersecurity at all. So if people are willing to attack the grid physically, the whole area around cyber is obviously a big concern. I still think that what we've got to continue to educate people to do is to understand what they have, and that security risk analysis is paramount to them to get started in that journey. I think we've been able to really position the team as subject matter experts with our customers, and I'm grateful that people trust us, because it really is a big deal to say, this is what's wrong with my stuff and please help me fix it, and then we do. And trust is a big deal, because as well as I do, with the vendors that we've worked with and the companies that we work with, there are some sketchy people out there, unfortunately. And although a year and whatever ago, when I gave you a lot of heat about wanting to spend the money that we were going to spend on SOC, I think what it does, besides being able to say, hey, look, Joe and Angie own the company, we're really nice people, you should trust us, to be able to have just another way, besides NAID AAA, besides downstream data insurance, now having SOC type 1 is a big deal. Like it is a big deal. So I'm looking forward to an even greater 2023. I know that we're gonna have a really great year. Looking forward to hopefully growing the staff as well as growing the number of clients that we serve. We continue to have a great reach in both sides of our business, both nationally and internationally. So I think that's a great thing. Getting ready to roll into the 22nd or 23rd year. I had no gray hair when we started. Angie had short hair when we started. I think that the reality is that what you had said earlier is true. We do get to have a great time at work every day. Being an owner isn't always easy. It's not meant to be. If it was, I think everybody would be an owner. But what we get to do, I think, is create value for people. And by the things that we do, we allow our customers to focus on their core level of responsibility in the delivery of service in healthcare, in government, in education, financial services, et cetera. And they rely on us and they trust us from a security perspective. So enjoy your time away, which is coming up shortly. I promise, as I always do, not to fire anybody while you're away. And we will be back in February with another Data Security Over Coffee.
I can't wait.
I know, it's just super duper. See you later, Goober.
Bye.